On today's episode,
let's do a deep dive.
This is about a club in New York called the Box Club. Apparently a place that was frequented by Epstein, potentially funded to a certain extent by Epstein as well.
It's highly disturbing. It's incredibly damning. And to preface this, after reading Jamie's Substack and going through some of the articles, the nightclub that's at the center of these allegations, known as The Box, that nightclub actually filed, they threatened legal action against this journalist, Jamie Crawford.
Having gone to clubs, parties, etc., that were pretty wild, and having seen things that maybe not everyone's been exposed to. And so being able to provide that kind of context, I think, might be able to help ground this documentary in reality for some people who don't really have those experiences.
They're out in the open now. They're not even trying to conceal it anymore. These people went to the same universities and fraternities. They're on the same boards of directors. They have like interests. They don't need to call a meeting. They know what's good for them. You don't need a formal conspiracy with interests.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We are picking up on the Epstein Club documentary video by the Conspiracy Files YouTube channel. Full title is The Epstein Club, the most disturbing deep dive on YouTube. We really just got started with this video last time, kind of setting the ground for what I want to do here, which is reactions to more long form content. Trying to work with different ideas on some of those on some of that longer form content, and just conspiracies in general, and really focusing less on the more theoretical things and more on the real political stuff, the stuff that's real, that is actually going on or has a potential of being real. We're not talking about Bigfoot or Mothman, that kind of stuff, although we may look at some of that stuff at some point. But really focusing on some of the content in the political space that is a little bit more grounded in reality, and really trying to look at it from a critical lens in terms of what do we really know and what can we draw from that in terms of conclusions? Can we establish any patterns that we can apply to other events in order to draw new learnings there? Are we able to see a through line across history from different events to event to event? In some cases, is there really nothing there? Are we able to disprove enough of the narrative that maybe this one, there isn't much to it? So that's kind of, the baseline of what I want to do here with this longer form stuff. In the first episode of this series, we really just scratched the surface of setting the foundation and going through the intro of this video. So today we're actually going to get into some of the real content. I have yet to watch this, so this is new for me. Just going through it for the first time. I watched about maybe 10 or some minutes of it before shutting it off and realizing I wanted to watch this for the channel. Before we get started, Conspiracy Files is the YouTube channel. Link in the description below. Go give him a like and a follow. Check him out. Great channel. Been a subscriber of theirs for a long time. He does a lot of really fantastic content and deserves credit for this one. He is reading an article in Substack by a gentleman named Jamie Crawford. Go give them a follow as well. That's also in the link in the description below. I'll have that article pulled up as well and may flash it on the screen occasionally and just kind of jump back and forth as we watch this documentary together. So with all that being said, let's jump in.
Let's do a deep dive. So I've got a lot of Epstein reports coming soon, especially in July. I'm going to be doing an Epstein-centric episode.
So I should lay out the premise real quick. Again, this is about a club in New York called the Box Club that is apparently a place that was frequented by Epstein, potentially funded to a certain extent by Epstein as well. And there is allegedly, some illegal activity was happening at this place. It's the sort of activity that would very much be in line with a gentleman like Epstein. So that's kind of what we're working off of so far. We don't really have a lot of details beyond that. I think that it's an interesting video to bring context for, because I imagine that if you have never lived in a place like New York or any big city, Miami, Nashville, and name any big city in the US, Denver, LA, San Francisco, Seattle, right? Like if you've never lived in a major metropolitan area or spent any significant time there, and I'm not talking about a 2-week vacation, I'm talking, 12 months and up, right? Like you really got to live in places like this for at least a year to really soak in the culture. And if you've never had that opportunity, then hearing this kind of stuff might be a little bit unbelievable to you, right? Like if you've just lived in outside of major metropolitan areas, it might seem a little bit shocking that these kinds of places exist. I happen to have a unique experience in that regard, having lived in the Bay Area, grown up there, and spent a lot of time in San Francisco, in addition to spending about 4 years in New York. And seeing in both of those places, nowhere near what we're going to be seeing in this documentary, but having gone to clubs, parties, etc., that were pretty wild, and having seen things that maybe not everyone's been exposed to. And so being able to provide that kind of context, I think, might be able to help ground this documentary in reality for some people who don't really have those experiences.
Every single week in July, and I'm going to post about Epstein every single day on my social media to ensure that this story doesn't die, to try relight the fire that in a way has almost been extinguished surrounding Epstein. And
we should never let this go. I think I said that in the last video, but I think right now specifically there's so much focus because of the preliminary trial. There's so much focus on the Charlie Kirk case. Not to say that that isn't important, that that's not something that you should be taking a look at as well, but I think there's a lot more on the meat on the bone, so to speak, with the Epstein stuff. Not that there isn't a lot of crazy stuff going on with the Kirk case. Not that there isn't a lot of questions there, and very alarming conclusions that you can potentially draw from that incident, depending on your perspective. But that being said, I think the Epstein operation is a lot more pervasive and a lot more, impactful in terms of the conclusions that can be drawn from a character like Epstein being real. What we know about him, and what we can sort of theorize about him. Ultimately, what conclusions would that lead you to about how the world works, about how this country is really run, about who's really in control, who's really in power. There's a lot more there with the Epstein situation than there is with the Kirk situation. Although I do think there's quite a bit there with the Kirk situation as well. I think Epstein is a better target for that type of analysis and that type of critical lens. And when there's so much engagement happening around the Kirk stuff right now, it's important not to let this one go. Frankly, never let this one go. Similarly with the JFK stuff, like the minute you let this out of the zeitgeist, that's when they stop addressing it, and you're never really going to get any action around it. And so I think it's important to keep these conversations going. As new information comes out, like the Box Club, we should be diving into it and just constantly keeping it at the forefront of popular zeitgeist.
Some research, I came across the Substack, which is basically like an independent news outlet. Anybody can have a Substack and they can post their own articles and research, and it's almost like a blog for journalists. This Substack is run by a guy named Jamie Crawford, who has really been attacking the Epstein thing for years now. He's written so many really, really great.
I haven't edited the series yet, the first video in the series yet, so some of this might be repeat. I apologize for that. I'm kind of a little bit all over the place as I'm getting my feet under me with this new segment of content for the channel, so please bear with me. Thank you.
depth articles about the Epstein network. And for today's episode, I have to give 100% of the credit to Jamie. I'm just going to read this long, lengthy article that he wrote to you because I feel like he put everything together in this article in such a perfect package where it's highly disturbing, it's incredibly damning. And to preface this, after reading Jamie's Substack and going through some of the articles, the nightclub that's at the center of these allegations, known as The Box, that nightclub actually filed, or they threatened legal action against this journalist, Jamie Crawford, because he published in this Substack article a clip from what they claimed is unreleased, copyrighted documentary that they filmed about the nightclub. And the clip that he included in here is highly disturbing.
Yeah, all the credit to Mr. Jamie Crawford. Go check out his Substack. Give him a follow. Give him some engagement. I think it's really important to support people who are doing the real on-the-ground investigative work. I think Conspiracy Files YouTube channel in this particular instance isn't doing a lot of that grunt work. It's really coming from Jamie Crawford. He's doing more of the communications aspect of it. Same thing with my channel, with what I'm doing in this piece of content as well. Which isn't to say that Conspiracy Files hasn't done more original investigative work in other videos. It's just not what he's doing here in this case. So all of the credit to Jamie Crawford. And to add something real quick about, he really glossed over it here, but he said that the basis of the lawsuit, and I don't know if this is true, I'm just basing it off what he said here. The basis of the lawsuit is that it was copyright infringement as a result of a documentary, yet to be released documentary that they were working on The Box. So The Box is doing a documentary. The people who own The Box, whatever, run The Box, whatever, are doing a documentary on their own club. And anyone who now releases information about the club, you can sue them and try and shut down dissemination of that information because it's now copyright infringement. What that makes me think is, I wonder if this is a tactic to keep the place under wraps. I've never heard about this club until this Jamie Crawford guy came around. So is that documentary ever going to come out, or is it just a legal tool that they can use to bludgeon other people, journalists, etc., when they do want to write stories or release content on this stuff? They can use it as a tool to shut down that content.
Talk about that in a second, but this nightclub's legal team has already threatened this journalist to basically remove the information that he's posted and stay silent. He hasn't done so. I'm not going to show the clip because I want to avoid getting into the weeds legally with some of these people, but I'll definitely talk about it and describe it to you because I've watched it and it's really, really disturbing. But yeah, I want to give a shout out to Jamie Crawford. Jamie, if you're out there, thank you for doing this research and thank you for putting this together. 100% of the credit goes to him. This article on his Substack, which I'm going to link in the description of the video, is titled "The Big Club, Jeffrey Epstein's Connections to New York City's Most Infamous Nightclub." And this was published on April 28th, 2026. While I was reading this for the first time, I truly couldn't believe what I was reading. This is really, really disturbing stuff. So, yeah, I am going to be reading this almost verbatim. So all credit goes to Jamie. Thank you, Jamie, for posting this. Let's begin. In September 2006, a blog post on Gawker was published about a then upcoming New York City nightclub called The Box. The club is owned by the impresario of smut, a man named Simon Hammerstein, the grandson of the Sound of Music's Oscar Hammerstein. This 2006 blog post goes on to talk about one of the pedigreed men rumored to be behind The Box, the billionaire financier Jeffrey Epstein, who had just been arrested for procuring a minor for prostitution earlier that summer. Quote, "His involvement would help explain the venue name," end quote, the author wrote in jest. So I'm going to go through these links as we look at all of this stuff. I mean, yeah, right here, this is posted. This is an original link to the Gawker website. September 5th, 2006, this article was posted by an author known at the time as Jessica, and the title of this article from 06 is "Jeffrey Epstein and The Box. Was the Tug Already Taken?" And as you can see at the bottom, this author back in 2006, before this nightclub was even really a thing, wrote, Now, this is a total rumor, but another pedigreed individual said to be behind the box is billionaire financier Jeffrey Epstein, who, of course, has been accused of soliciting massages and hand jobs from girls. Anyone know of anything more? We want to believe it, if only because his involvement would help to explain the venue name. So some poor taste humor straight off the bat. Yeah, this is another link here to an article talking.
I think he said it, but just to call that out, that Gawker article goes all the way back to 2006. This New York article looks like it was published in 2008. So Epstein's connection to this club is well known, going back decades before his rise in popular media. So I think it's important to call that out.
About the kind of founder and proprietor behind this club, Simon Hammerstein. This article...
I should say the reason it's important to call it out is because everyone who continues to be involved with this guy back then, this is prior to his second arrest in 2018 or 2019, whenever it was. But after his arrest and what's the word where you get in trouble with the court? I forget. God, blanking. But after his conviction, his initial conviction and the sweetheart deal happened and I forget when that happened, but let's look it up real quick. Epstein sweetheart deal. Looks like it was in 2006. Excuse me, 2008. Well, that's interesting. So he must have already when was Epstein's initial conviction? Yeah, 2008 initial charge. I'm just wondering because she's clearly the initial Gawker post. Okay, 2006 was when he was initially formally charged. That's what I wanted to establish, because that woman Jessica from the Gawker post that was posted in 2006, she's obviously aware of his predilections all the way back in 2006, and that would have been interesting. How did she know about it if he hadn't been formally charged at that point? But a high-profile guy like him being charged with this type of crime, certain people would be aware, and it looks like that happened in 2006. Let's back up a second and see. The initial charge was in July of 2006. Jessica is writing in September of 2006. So that timeline does make sense. So she probably was just aware from the initial charge, and it was brought to light that he was potentially involved in this club, The Box, as far back as his first charge. I mean, literally a few months after that first charge. What does that mean? That means anyone who's continuing to involve themselves with Epstein after July 2006 or with this club after July 2006 is potentially suspect. Not everyone who went to that club is involved in the same type of thing, but if you are a high-profile person, someone like a Jamie Dimon, some of these banking execs who were wrapped up with Epstein, if they are that high profile, they are, this isn't a theory, this isn't an idea. People in that line of work at that level are certainly aware of something we call optics, right? So the optics of a relationship with Epstein after a charge like this are certainly damning. And these people were certainly aware of it to an extent. Now, maybe they weren't aware of every detail and nuance of the crime, or they overlooked it because it wasn't as, didn't have as much of an impact in the news at the time. I mean, there's a lot of nuance and complexity to the optics conversation. But anyone who's involved with Epstein after July 2006, or going and frequenting this club, knowing Epstein is there after the July 2006 charge, which leads to the 2008 conviction and the sweetheart deal in 2008. At that point, you have to think that anyone at a certain level is aware of potentially negative outcomes from the optics of being involved with someone like Epstein.
Another link here to an article talking about the kind of founder and proprietor behind this club, Simon Hammerstein. This article, posted in New York Magazine in 2008, literally nicknames him the impresario of smut. And here's a quote right here, basically, quote, "I would like to begin by thanking Mr. Simon Hammerstein for freeing me from sexual slavery," end quote. That's what a performer, I believe, at the club said. And we could read all of these articles. I have read them all. They verify all of the information that's presented here. This article is basically just talking about the guy who started the box, Simon Hammerstein. It discusses kind of his really, really liberal, free sexual tastes, and it describes how he basically encourages people to indulge in that dark sexual side of themselves. It's a pretty interesting article, and it's pretty bizarre. It gives some context into who this guy is and why he may have started this club.
A lot of just glancing at that briefly, and I haven't read that article, but probably should, but just glancing at that briefly, a lot of what seemed to be in that article were positive reporting around this Simon Hammerstein guy. So that's interesting, right? And I think it's an important distinction to make, certainly following up the point I made about optics around Epstein. Just because you were in Epstein's circles or in circles close to Epstein in that orbit doesn't necessarily mean you were doing bad things. Just because you are sexually liberal, open to new experiences, doesn't mean that you're involved in illegal activities, doesn't mean you're essaying anyone, doesn't mean you're doing any sort of PDFing, anything like that, right? So it's important to distinguish that, right? And because everything that was in that article that we just glanced over, he just skimmed it. Again, I haven't read it. There were several quotes, though, of people working at the club saying, "Hey, I've never seen any sort of essay. This guy has only done good by me." So there's people who are working at this club who have personal relationships with this Simon Hammerstein gentleman, who are reporting favorably on him. So that's something important to distinguish, I think, right? Just because a club is sort of alternative type of club, a sex club, for instance, it doesn't mean that they're involved in any type of illegal activity. There are certainly clubs like that are above board. So to suggest that this is inherently something wrong is going on here is not the case. That's not a valid claim at all, right? So we don't want puritanical sort of frankly religious type of mores and values to enter into this conversation. That's perfectly fine if you personally hold those values, but you can't put that on everyone else around you and then claim that this person is a bad person, right? That's not really what I'm interested in doing. And if you are, I think you're doing a disservice to the discussion, right? There's plenty of other avenues of attack here without going to a place of morality, right? Like, just because someone is sexually liberal doesn't mean that they're immoral, right? Regardless of what you think. Now, for you, that may not be part of your life, right? You may make those judgments in terms of your personal relationships and who you choose to interact with and et cetera, et cetera. But when we talk about bigger issues that involve and impact all of us, operating from a place of shared values makes a lot more sense. Why? Because it allows people who aren't obsessed with these concepts and these topics and this subject matter to engage with it in a more serious fashion. If you're constantly citing Christian morality as a reason why sexual liberalism is evil or something like this, you detract from the conversation's ability to reach those people that we need to reach, right? Like, if you're the type of person who watches a lot of this content, like myself, who's passionate about the subject matter, who finds it really interesting and engaging, you're not the person we need to reach. You're already going to go and watch this stuff and research this stuff and look into this stuff. What we need, which is what we talked about at the beginning, about keeping this in the popular zeitgeist, is what we need to be able to do is to have these kinds of conversations in a way where a number of people from different walks of life can engage with the material on beyond a surface level. Because that surface level narrative is going to be controlled by the mainstream media and that mainstream story that they're trying to tell everyone, that Epstein was a lone actor, no one else was involved, this, that, and the other, right? Which we all know is kind of BS, right? But if you want to be taken seriously by the people who aren't obsessed with this content, then you have to approach it from a perspective where they're willing to engage with you. And that means avoiding potentially insightful, not insightful, but potentially sort of provocative, for lack of a better term. Not that morality is provocative, but the types of viewpoints and values that other people can immediately go, I don't want anything to do with this, and that doesn't mean Christian morality is bad or anything like that. It just means that it is a topic of conversation that people can often be very much on opposing sides. And if you want to reach the person who's on the other side, you need to meet them where they're at, not force your ideas onto them. You're always going to lose that battle, right? And in the battle of ideas and narratives and stories like this, it is an extremely challenging battle to have, because the only thing you have to do to lose is the other side just walks away. They don't have to have the conversation. They got kids, they got a career, they got a home, they got a mortgage, they got vacations to plan, they got aging family members, they've got growing family members, they've got all kinds of issues and other priorities beyond Epstein or Charlie Kirk or whatever the flavor of the week conspiracy is, right? So expecting other people to engage with the content in the way you think they should is a losing battle. And so avoiding the pitfalls that can push people away, I think, is important. So when you recognize someone like a Simon Hammerstein, who seems to be a character just based on this picture alone, with this, eyes wide shut type masked figure looming over his shoulder, that's clearly a provocative image. He's certainly aware of what he's looking like and the response that he might evoke in the people who are looking at this photograph, and is doing that intentionally. And so to judge that on a surface level, I don't think is very helpful or valuable for spreading these conversations and this discussion to a broader audience. And importantly, when you see quotes like what we saw in that article, where there was a lot of positive commentary on this gentleman, it's important to call that out and to distinguish between those who are clearly bad actors and those who may just be in the orbit, but were doing so in a perfectly legitimate and above board fashion. And so far, I haven't seen anything about this Hammerstein guy that suggests he was part of the sort of Epstein crew and involved in that sort of PDF behavior. I could be 100% wrong. We're barely scratching the surface of this article and this documentary so far, but I think it's important to call out that nuance.
We're not really talking about him today. And by the way, for future reference, if you're watching this, here's a picture of Simon himself with, I believe, one of his performers at the club, which is very eyes wide shut and on the nose for what we're going to talk about today. In 2007, on the Motherboards in New York City forum, a user claimed to have heard that the box is owned by a consortium of lawyers and investment bankers. Artist Molly Crabapple, who worked at the box, has described it as, quote, the sort of place where the worst people in the world who have wrecked global economies and bankrupt small countries go to spend $10,000 of their ill-gotten gains on bottles of champagne and then try to pick up naked dancers, end quote. And this is interesting. Here's a drawing, an illustration made by that woman who stated that quote. She had actually worked at the box in the past. This is her depiction of that guy, Simon Hammerstein, that I just showed you, the kind of proprietor of the club, swinging from a curtain above a crowd of golden pigs that are throwing money everywhere, drinking in excess. One of them's, I can't really describe this on YouTube, what he's doing here, but she literally depicted the clientele of the club as over-the-top, chubby, belligerent pigs. So that's how we're starting this off.
I think it's possible that some people might write this off as, those types of people wouldn't do that. They wouldn't go to places like that. I think that's very, very naive. Just because someone's rich and successful, wears a suit to work every day, has a sort of upstanding citizen type of persona, doesn't mean that they aren't looking for places where they can go to blow off some steam. And they're going to want to go to places where other people like them also frequent. This is extremely common in every walk of life. So to suggest that rich people don't do it is a little silly. They certainly do, and they certainly do so in other areas outside of the nightlife. They often go to lunch at the same restaurants. They go to really high-end restaurants. They go to the club. They go to the same golf clubs. They go to all kinds of places. They vacation in the same places. They go to the vineyard, right? Like, many of us haven't been to these places, but we've heard of them, and we're aware of the type of clientele that frequent them. And so to suggest that there aren't nightlife venues for the same crowd is sort of silly. And to suggest that culture doesn't exist where it attracts primarily that type of crowd is also very silly. Anyone who's worked in a restaurant, especially in a big city, knows that it's very common for everyone in the restaurant to go to the same bar, right? Everyone after work, after your shift, everyone kind of ends up at the same bar. The restaurant has a bar that they go to. There's a hangout, a place where people in that industry go to. And it's very, very common for bartenders and people who work in the service industry to go frequent the same places, because they're going to run into people who are in their industry, who understand what it's like, who they can, vent to and relate to. And it happens down in areas of life that we've all experienced and are familiar with. It would be silly and naive to suggest that it doesn't happen to the upper crust as well.
Kind of the vibe of this hyper-exclusive club. And the Box, as a kind of a side note, let's just start this off. The Box, New York City, you'll look online at their website. You can see this is the modern logo. It's someone, I believe, taking a puff from maybe a long cigarette or a hookah. And all you can do here, I went through this page earlier, is click on a few things. They have a gallery with some odd photos from inside of the club, as you can see here. A bunch of people doing what look to be freak show performances, dancing, dressed as skeletons, holding flames, playing in the fire. It almost looks like a really hardcore magic show or cabaret show. So that's the entire gallery that's on their website. And the FAQ is very short. What days of the week is the Box open? They talk about how they're open Wednesday through Saturday. If you don't have a reservation, can you get in? And their answer is reservations are required for entry. Lacking a reservation, your chances will be calculated arithmetically. I hope I said that right. Arithmetically. Vibe multiplied by style divided by how many people you're with. And then...
Is that a word, arithmetically? I think that's how you say it. I don't know how to say it either. I've never seen that word before. So obviously, we all know what it means, but just funny note.
The only other FAQ is there a dress code? Their answer, there's only one way to find out, ... So that's about all the information about the Box.
This website is clearly not very helpful. It's not meant to give you information. It's meant to do the exact opposite. It's meant to be provocative. It's meant to be secretive. It's meant to make you feel special. It's meant to be sexy and thought-provoking and engaging on that front, in that it's interesting, in that they're not trying to get you to come, that they're not trying to make it easy for you, that they're not trying to actively market to people, that they attract clientele inherently, and they don't need the sort of rabble to come. an example of this that some people might have experienced, a lot of people I'm sure have at this point, are speakeasies. Speakeasies really started coming back like in the last 20 years or so. And they kind of play up the idea of the original speakeasy where you had to have a password and stuff like that. Some of them do, some of them don't. But when they first started coming out, I remember where I lived, that was kind of the thing. You had to make a reservation, you had to get a password, you had to knock on a door. It didn't have signs outside, didn't look like a bar. You had to knock on a door, someone opened up a sign, oh, what's the password? And you go and you get to pretend, you get to cosplay like you're going to a speakeasy during the Prohibition era. And a lot of people are in costume and all this stuff. And that's open to the public and anyone can get it. Anyone can make a reservation. And those places are all over the country now, and I'm sure in other countries as well. And I imagine a lot of people can relate to having that experience. Now, just think about what that experience was like. Think about the website when you went to go make a reservation. You know, all of these things. It wasn't on TikTok. There weren't Google, right? Like it made itself cool in what it didn't do and what it didn't tell you. It was sort of secretive and sexy in that way. And that's how it marketed itself, right? And I think that was obviously a faux version of what we're seeing here with the box, but it's an example of the same type of strategy, right? So you're seeing that similar strategy, I think, here with the box, but it's the real world version of it. And I think we're going to end it there for today. We're only about 10 minutes into this hour and 45-minute video because I talk so much. But like I said, I think my objective with this is to continually add context to it as we go, to try and ground this in reality as much as we can, help people really wrap their heads around it, and be able to speak about it in a way that keeps the conversation in the popular zeitgeist in a manner in which a wider audience will engage with it. I think that that's really important, is keeping this at the forefront of the societal discourse that happens around issues with our government, because I think this is an epicenter of some really dark stuff that's happened that is impacting how our society, how American society is run, potentially global society. So, all that being said, I hope you enjoyed some of the commentary. I know I talk a lot. Next time we'll try to get through a little bit more than just 10 minutes of footage. And we'll keep plowing our way through this documentary. I think it's going to be a really good one. I'm really interested in it. So with that being said, please like, comment, subscribe. All the engagement helps. Really, really, really appreciated. And we will be back next time with another one. Thanks.